This is the story of how I prevented a school, and this is just a trigger warning that I will be talking about. And the reason that I'm not saying the word and I'm doing this is because I don't want to get banned. So for some context, this happened to me when I was in high school, so in I think it was 2018 or 2017, and this happened around the time that I think it was like the day after, if you guys remember, like the Nicholas Cruz like school, like that story. So I'm from Canada, and compared to the United States, we have more control over, so this is just crazy. And I was debating on sharing this story. I didn't really want to, just because I do have a lot of trauma from it, but I do feel that the message that is from this story may be helpful. Okay, so let's get into this story. Like I said, it was when I was in grade 12, so I think it was 2018. I can't remember if it was my first or second semester. So there was this guy who was in my class. He was in my English class, and he was in my grade 11 and 12 English class, and I always thought he was just kind of like, I don't know, troubled. Like, I remember he used to just say like really crazy things, and like no one would take him seriously. So I remember one day, and I'll never ever forget this day, because this is the most scared I've been in my entire life. I'll never forget how I felt. So it was the last class of the day, and it was towards the end of the day, and my teacher walks out. I think she went to like the printer or something to get something. And I remember my teacher walked out of the room, and like 30 seconds after she left the room, this guy, he was like, okay, that's enough. Everybody get down. Like, I remember my stomach dropped, my heart was racing, beating out of my chest, and nobody took him seriously. Like, all the other kids were like, yeah, okay, and like they said his name, and they're like, shut up, like, you're not funny. And I remember him saying, no guys, I'm serious, I've had enough. And like, growing up, like, I am extremely observant of people. I've always been this way, and like I always remember like people like telling me to like stop staring, and like I just sit there and I observe everybody, so I feel like I'm really good at reading people. And I remember this entire class, like, I was like, he's acting different. Like, he couldn't sit still, and like he was just acting really weird. But then he reached down in his bag, and as my teacher walked back in, he like got up like this and was like so weird. But so like I said, he like reached down in his bag, but then my teacher came in, and as she was coming back in the room, she said something, and he like, I don't know, he just kind of jumped, and that was like really weird to me. And like, this was at the end of the day, and like, I don't know, nobody really cared, to be honest. And I'm just sitting there like, I'm gonna pass out. Like, I remember I could not move. I felt so sick. I literally thought I was about to die. And I remember the girl that was sitting next to me was so mean. She's like, are you okay? And she's like, he was just kidding, he's not actually gonna do it. I just remember like me like having like fear and like panic, and like someone saying that to you is not okay. Anyways, I remember I could not move, and I just sat there for the rest of the class, which I think was like half an hour or like 20 minutes. And then my teacher dismissed us and everyone left, and I remember I literally could not move. Like, my legs are frozen, and I was just like in fear, and I couldn't move. So everyone leaves, and my teacher notices I'm still sitting there, which like isn't that weird for me, because I usually would talk to her after class. Like, we had a pretty good relationship. But she came over to me, and she's like, what's going on? Like, you're really pale. And she's like, you look like you're gonna pass out. And I literally just explained to her what happened, and she took that so seriously. Thank God. And you'll find out why. Like, I'm telling you right now, she did not take that lightly. We went right down to the office, and we called the police. We got the principal involved. We literally got everyone involved, and we made a statement. And I was just in fear. I went home that day, and I remember telling my mom, and like, I don't have a good relationship with my mom, but like, my mom got so upset because this just happened with like the Nicholas Cruz situation, if you guys remember that. Like, that was so fresh. So like, this was like a big thing. And like, in Canada, like, we don't get things like this. Like, you hardly ever hear about school, like, thank God. But yeah, the school took this really seriously, and this story gets really crazy. So the next day I decided not to go to school because I was just so anxious about it. And then I decided to go to school the next day, and like, the first thing when I saw my teacher, like, she pulled me aside and we had a really good conversation, and she told me some really crazy things. She was such a sweetheart, and she like obviously reassured me that I was safe and like everything was being dealt with. But she told me that they've been investigating and they found some stuff. So I go back to school, I talk to my teacher, and she reassures me. She makes me feel really safe. And she tells me that this student actually did end up getting suspended, and there's a whole like police investigation going on. But here is the extremely scary part. So upon investigation, when they were like looking at cameras and stuff, that same day they have video footage of him at his locker showing his friends in the hallway this is in Canada, so like this is like extremely scary, because how did this kid get a... And like she was telling me that like the kids in the videos, like they didn't even care, nobody reported it, and he was literally just like showing it off, like he just thought he was like the coolest thing ever. So the even crazier part is that they actually searched his locker, and that they found in his locker, which is absolutely insane, was not the same one that was seen in the video footage. So that means that this kid had not one but two. And then at this point, obviously there's like rumors going around and stuff, and I remember he decided to post on his Snapchat story, and like everyone was sending this to each other, screenshotting it. He was like, oh my god, got expelled, and he was like, I wasn't actually gonna do it. And then he was like, you guys are so dramatic. Anyways, the purpose of me telling you this story is that you should always trust your gut, and no matter what, you should take any threat seriously. So this obviously could have ended a lot worse, and it is extremely alarming that none of these kids took it seriously. I mean, we live in Canada, so like we don't really hear about it often, but the point of me sharing this story is because we need to be educating our kids that we need to take all things seriously. This 100% prevented a school, and I honestly believe with all my heart that this would have happened if I didn't say anything. You never know what goes through people's minds and what their actual intentions are. So even if someone does make a joke about something like this, like you should really do something about it. And I'm so happy that my school took this so seriously. I think all schools should learn from this. I think the school took all appropriate action, which is amazing to see. And I honestly think that this did prevent a school.
I tell you about the time that this hoe tried to steal my mans while we were shopping at Victoria's Secret. This little situation, I want to say, happened when I was 16, so 3 years ago. The story starts off with me and my boyfriend's name is Dylan, by the way. Starts off with me and him going to the mall. Oh shit. Got there, walked by Victoria's Secret. Actually, this takes place in the pink side of Victoria's Secret. But yeah, I saw that they were having a sale on their underwear. Like, I think it was like 5 for $25 back then. It's like 5 for $40 now or some shit. But yeah, we went in there because I needed some new underwear, so yeah. So I was just picking out my 5 for $25 or whatever. You know how dudes are, they're always helping you, you know, pick out the colors and shit. Like, you know, they like, oh, I'm picking them out. Everything was good. Everything was normal. The worker was helping me out. She had her cute little iPad. Like, we were chilling. Picking them out. Like, this one's ugly. This one's cute. This one says something really cringy. I'm telling you, they had the days of the week underwear. Like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday type shit. Thursday, Friday type shit. Saturday, Sunday type underwear, okay? Fuck do I look like to you, 12? Should I had my ass in the Victoria's Secret side? Like, maybe I wanted a sexy thong or something. Sorry, I've been stalling, guys, but this is the part where it's about to get juicy. Okay, so the hoe that I mentioned in the beginning of the video, we're gonna give her a fake name. So we're gonna name this bitch fucking Lindsay. I'm sorry if your name's Lindsay, by the way. For context, Lindsay and my boyfriend used to be friends. She was basically obsessed with them. It was the whole thing. Like, she asked him to homecoming. He said no because he didn't like her. Basically obsessed with my mans. Still, and we had been dating at this point for like well over 6 months. Like, she knew we were dating. Real quick so you can picture it, me and my boyfriend had our backs turned to the entrance, so the entrance was like right behind us. We were still looking at the underwear. Yeah. Okay, this is what happens. Bitch ass Lindsay literally comes up. I didn't even see her do this at this point. And I see her just on my mans, physically on my man. This hoe dead ass runs up and hug jumps. Like, jumps and like hugs him, like one of those hugs. This girl like can't be serious. Like, doesn't everyone know that that's like a relationship hug for like a boyfriend and girlfriend? Like, you don't do that, especially when someone's taken. Now you're probably like, oh, Emily, what did you do? Because what would anyone do in this situation when some girl is like manhandling your boyfriend in Victoria's Secret while you're picking out underwear, like mid underwear shop? Girl, take a hint. Not to mention she had a friend with her, just like standing there like, what the fuck? And also the pink worker was like, what the fuck? And my boyfriend was just standing there while she was hugging her like this, like Really arms like this, like not accepting the hug. Why would he? Well, I ended up taking out my hoops, like hold my hoops, and I started fighting this bitch. I'm kidding. I kept it classy. I didn't do shit. So like hugging him, like, oh my god, I haven't seen you in forever, like I miss you. I was just shocked. Like I did not know what to do. I was frozen. Jump scare. It's like if you went to the mall, saw one of your guy friends and his girlfriend literally at Victoria's Secret doing their thing, and you just run up and jump hug him. Like, who does that? Like, girl, you knew better. You really did. Wow, my lashes look so good right now. Yeah, nothing really happened. Like, after they hugged, he was like, hi, and they just left. Literally so awkward. Moral of the story, don't be like Lindsay. Just don't. It's always the blonde bitches. But if for some reason this goes mega viral and she sees this, girl, no hard feelings, but like, what were you thinking? I'm going to the fair with my mans after this. The same mans. We're still together after over 4.5 years, so you can't have them, Lindsay. You still can't have them. Ooh.
I, 29 female, found out that my dad, 54 male, might not be my bio dad, and he's known for 23 years. I'm the oldest daughter of my mom, 50 female, who has now been married 5 times. 2 of my sisters and I are the product of her first marriage, and she had custody of us growing up. My mom and I have an extremely strained relationship. It goes without saying. My childhood was difficult. I have learned through many years of therapy that she is not someone who is good for my mental health, so I've had to keep our contact very limited. This past weekend, my husband, 36 male, and I went on a quick kid-free vacation to meet my dad and his wife, 45 female, at their vacation home. The trip was wonderful and much needed. One night, we decided to hang out at the bar and have some drinks. We started talking about life and growth and all of the things we've overcome in our life. And naturally, the discussion of my mom came up. My dad's marriage to my mom was anything but wonderful. They fought often, and my mother, who is now diagnosed with borderline personality disorder, was mentally, financially, and emotionally abusive. Their inevitable divorce was difficult on my dad, but eventually he pulled through, remarried, and is very successful, something he could have never done while married to my mom. My sisters and I have always known that my mom was not faithful in her marriage to my dad. On one occasion, she was sleeping with the Schwann's delivery driver, frozen food delivery service, super popular in the 90s. And it was the running joke in my family that my youngest sister was the Schwann's man's baby. Later, mom would say, out of all of you, I know me is for sure your dad's daughter, but I didn't look anything like my dad or my other sisters. I know genetics are a weird thing, so I never gave in for a second thought, but I have dark hair, eyes, medium skin tone, and I'm very tall and lanky, whereas my sisters are very blonde, blue eyes, fair, average height, and broad, and resemble my dad and his side of the family. While reminiscing and having one of our very adult conversations at the bar, my dad dropped a bombshell on me. Quote, I'm not sure that you are my biological child. It was told to me that I was conceived shortly after their honeymoon. My dad believes it to be true, but with another man. It was while they were in the middle of their divorce proceedings when my cousin, mom's niece, now 42 female, called my dad to tell him everything. She and my mom were very close, but she could not take the lies and the secrets that my mom had been keeping for so many years. She and everyone on my mom's side of the family adored my dad and was disgusted by the way she treated him. She told dad the names of men my mom had had affairs with over the years, with receipts, as much as you can in the early 2000s. She too was very concerned that I was not his child biologically. My dad has had this in the back of his mind now for 23 years. I am now married with 3 children and have a beautiful life and an absolutely wonderful dad. I wouldn't be who I was today without him, but after this, I'm having a complete identity crisis. He already told me that he will not get a paternity test because he doesn't want to know. So I don't know what to do next. My sisters have agreed to get genetic testing, but what if we find out we all have different fathers? I could contact my cousin and ask her for the mystery man's name and reach out to him, but then I risk my mom getting wind of the situation, and that would make everything so much worse. I feel so guilty of my reaction of the news, and I feel so bad for my dad that I want answers. The answers change nothing with the relationship with dad, but will destroy any last bit of relationship with my mom. So here I am, spilling my heart out to strangers on Reddit because I don't know who to talk to or what to do.
Am I wrong for pulling out of planning my sister's wedding, causing her to lose her venue? As a wedding planner who has been in the industry for many years now, my 31 mil party trick amongst close friends and family is being able to guess how long my clients' marriages will last with pretty alarming accuracy. If you ask anyone in the industry, there are specific indicators while working with a couple that allow us to be able to gauge compatibility. I can usually get down to around a 6-month window when predicting when photos of each other will disappear from socials. This is not me taking joy in crashing and burning of relationships. Working in this career field can actually leave you feeling jaded about relationships in general, which is why I'm reluctant to work for friends and family. The specific stress wedding planning puts on some people/couples can bring out the worst in them that you don't see in everyday life. My sister is getting married early next year and practically begged me to plan for her despite my stance on clients I know personally. I finally gave in and we began the process back in March. Last week, while we were meeting and finalizing a few things, she asked me about the party trick I mentioned. She said since I had been working with her and her fiance for months now, I could give my prediction as to how long they were going to last. I laughed and tried to move on. I thought she was joking, but she continued to press the issue. After her continually bothering me about this for at least 15 minutes when I'm trying to move on, I do have work outside of my specific appointment with her that I need to get to. I finally told her I thought they would last forever. She claimed she didn't believe me and wanted my real number, so I shrugged and told her the truth. 1.5 years. She was livid. I felt incredibly uncomfortable with the whole ordeal, especially with how little she respected my boundaries in what is supposed to be a professional setting. I felt incredibly uncomfortable with the whole ordeal, especially with how little she respected my boundaries in what is supposed to be a professional setting, and just tried to usher her out of my office. Instead, she began ranting about my own marriage and said she gave us until the end of the year before we break up and accused me of being a homewrecker. She finally left and I emailed her saying I would no longer be involved in planning. I gave her the contact information for all of the vendors we were working with, but told her the venue would no longer be available as they only booked to people they have existing relationships with and my involvement was necessary. I have had to break up with clients before, but this felt particularly rough. She has now told our parents that I am purposefully sabotaging her wedding and that I was unforgivably rude to her when she just asked a playful question. I feel very silly for letting a person disrespect my boundaries over and over again, something I typically wouldn't tolerate, but now I'm wondering if I'm in the wrong. So, am I the asshole?
I'm not gay because my mother is gay. Some of y'all just do not understand how this works and I just want to talk about it. I recently posted my coming out story. One of the reasons why I was scared to tell social media that I was in fact gay because I knew my mom was going to get backlash. I don't really give a frick what you guys said about me. Personally, I don't care, but it's about my mom. Like, that's not what we're going to do. I knew I liked girls for a very long time, okay? My mom didn't bring any female that she had an intimate relationship around me until I was literally older. Like, Tina's the first woman that she brought around me. I grew up with a single mom or she had a boyfriend at the time. So it's because she grew up with a woman in the household, so she just wants that. That's what she looks up to. She's brainwashed. What are you talking about? I like girls because I like girls. I like girls because I like what I see. I like girls because there's not only just a better connection, but there's a better emotional, intimate, physical connection with them. Before anyone says you didn't have a real man, I don't need a real man for one, and for two, there's no difference in my attraction when it comes to them. I don't see myself with a man. I don't want to be with a man. My mom dating a woman has no influence on me dating a woman. That's not a thing. You straight because your mom's straight? I'm just asking. Like, I'm not being a smartass. I'm actually just asking. Did they influence you to date the opposite? Because that's what your parents do. They date the opposite. Or is it that's because of what you like? Oh, really? Okay. Then why are you thinking that my mom being gay influenced me being gay? That's not a thing. And it's not a phase. Honey, listen. I feel like some people might have got, like, the wrong, like, you know, what's that word called? You got the wrong bitch. That's what you got. But seriously, though, like, no, that's not what it is. I like girls because I like girls. No, I don't need a real man. No, I don't need a man to protect me. No, I'm not going to hell. Yes, I have a relationship with God. Yes, some people need to mind their business. When I say I love my girls, I love my girls. Like, not saying in that way, but I love you guys. Like, my girls, you guys are literally my best friends. That's why I built a relationship where I'm not showing, like, a certain layer of me, you know what I mean? No, I want you guys to know in-depth shit about me. I've been through so much stuff, and I just want you guys to, like, feel off that shit. Like, you guys are literally my friend. If someone honestly is telling you, like, it's a phase, what can you do about it? Nothing. You can't sit there and just try to prove to them that it's not a phase. And out their life, they don't have to lay next to anyone. Mom, like, you're not sleeping next to the person. Dad, you don't have to deal with this person, so why are you guys going to sit there and judge and hate on me. I have so many people in my life that do not support LGBTQ+, but guess what? They support me and they love me as an individual, so they're not going to sit there and hate and judge me. You know what I mean? It just like really breaks my heart that my girls and my boys have to deal with this. How hard is it to just support and love them? Like, they are your family. Yes, they like someone, but what's the problem? No one else has to live our life besides us. No one else has to deal with the consequences besides us. No one has to deal with the actions besides us. Why are we living up to everyone else's standard? I feel like everyone has a pink gun. If you don't got a pink gun, you're just curious about the pink gun.
I didn't really choose to come out of the closet. It kind of just happened when my dad caught me doing the deed with a boy, and I need to tell y'all this story. Holly Boone Foundation, and this all started in about 10th grade in high school. I, at the time, was very much in the closet, and I had this boy best friend in my friend group. And we really did start out just as best friends, but bitch, that did not last long before he was in my bed and my dad found me. Let me explain. This milk contour stick melts like my heart did when I saw this boy because, girl, I had the fattest crush on him, but he didn't know yet. Rare Beauty blush, and it wasn't until we would always hang out at our friend's house after school, and then when everyone would go home, he started asking if he could come to my house with just me after everyone was leaving, and I was like, this is going somewhere. I, of course, was like, fuck yes, because I wanted to spend as much time with him as I could, but I didn't think anything of it. I thought he was just like wanting to be my friend. Little did I know. Something led to a fucking nother, and eventually he was coming over to my house every single day after we left our friend's house, and we were doing our thing, you know. Eventually we ended up talking about things and agreed that we both liked each other, but we weren't going to tell anyone. We were just going to do our thing because we were both still very much in the closet. By this point, I'm pretty sure our whole friend group knew what we were up to, but our delusional asses and being so uncomfortable and closeted thought nobody knew. City Color Cosmetics blush, and let me update you on like where we are so far. So we're hanging out every single day, spending so much time with each other. We're pretty much dating, but nobody knows. Give Beauty highlighter, and this is where it gets juicy. Take a sip of your fucking Starbucks and buckle up. If y'all didn't get the reference by now, we would be in my bedroom at my dad's house with the door closed doing the nasty because my dad had no idea we were a thing and he thought we were just friends. Did my eyes off camera. I used the Morphe X Meredith palette, the new one, and bitch, I am obsessed. This eye look is fucking everything. Now let's get into the major tea. One day we were at my dad's house freaking around in my room after school, and I thought my dad wasn't home because we would mostly do stuff when he wasn't home, but bitch. And because I thought my dad wasn't home, me and my boyfriend both had no clothes on. We were in my bed doing our thing. Jaclyn Hill brightening palette, and tell me why mid Super Suck 5000 my dad fucking busts open my bedroom door. On these velour lashes, and honestly, I think my dad was as fucking scared as I was because he just shut the door and left out of my room immediately. Literally 10 seconds after my dad left out of the door, he started yelling my name from the hallway and wanted me to go outside to talk to him, so I put my clothes on and did the walk of shame out into the hallway. He pretty much told me he knew what I was doing and that the boy needed to go home immediately and we would talk once he went home. I went back into my room and started bawling my eyes out. Drove the boy home and I cried the whole way home because I pretty much thought this was the last time I was gonna see him, and my dad just found out I was gay. He brushed his setting spray, and when I got home, my dad pretty much told me he knows what I was doing, that boy is not allowed at my house anymore, and he needs some time to adjust to what he just found out. Me and the boy decided to stay together despite my dad's opinion, and we just decided not to hang out at my house anymore, but a few months later, that boy ended up cheating on me with a girl. So if you guys want a story time about that, let me know down below.
What is the most devious secret you share with a sibling? I had returned from finishing my freshman year in college, and my younger sister Jane had just turned 18. Since we were little kids, our family would often visit nudist resorts, and this weekend was no exception. This one particular resort we frequently visited had great facilities, a good group of friends and families who we got to know over time, and a great lake. The cabins on the resort were a little run down, so the last few years we decided to rent a cabin a 30-minute drive from the lake. On this particular weekend, Jane and I were smitten by the fitness bug. I was trying to get in better shape for the girls at college, and she was about to go to college hoping to make the track team. The first morning we decided we would bike to the lake from our cabin, which took a little more than an hour. When we finally got to the lake, we immediately stripped down but decided to keep our fitness kick going and went for a long run and swim. We felt like triathletes. It was great. After our hours of working out, we met our parents on the beach. They drove down and brought an enormous cooler full of picnic snacks and some drinks. It was the perfect way to follow up an entire morning of working out. We ate, drank, and relaxed completely nude. As the late afternoon rolled by, however, our dinner plans back at the cabin drew us home before sundown. That's when it hit Jane and I. We were looking at a long uphill bike ride home. After a full active day, the hot sun, and a large picnic, that was the last thing either of us wanted to do. We also hated putting our clothes back on after the lake and were used to driving home and spending the rest of the night nude at home. Ha! No chance. I remember Jane laughing when we all thought about getting home. I suggested we put the bikes in the trunk and drive home, but my dad insisted that it would be impossible to fit into our modest Toyota Camry. Jane and I exchanged looks and we both knew how awful that bike ride home would be, so we set out to solve the issue. Completely bare, we spent at least 20 minutes to finally squeeze the bike frames and tires into the trunk and back seat. However, my dad was quick to point out the massive cooler they had just packed up, which also had to fit into the car. It was getting late, and I was frustrated, so I picked up the cooler and crunched into the back seat, and said, There, we're going now. My sister smirked at me, proud of the success and avoiding the painful ride home. The final issue was the back seat barely had room for me to sit, let alone my sister. At this point, however, there was no turning back, so the only solution was for me to take the back seat and Jane to sit on my lap. My parents expressed some safety concerns, but Jane had no problem and insisted we do it. At this point, we were dead tired and just dying to get home. It was also at this time we realized our sweaty clothes were packed in the trunk, but since we would often drive home completely new, we didn't bother unpacking the car again. We were off, driving down the country roads with my parents fully clothed and fastened in the front, while my completely nude sister sat on my lap in the back. The awkward arrangement of the bike tires and cooler in the back, and the seatbelt strap over her waist forced my arm to rest in a way that my hand fell on the middle of Jane's upper thigh. Still, the whole scenario seemed completely normal to Jane and me, and we just chatted away as normal. About 15 minutes into the drive, the sun had almost set and we all became drowsy from the busy day. But suddenly, as we began to drive on the bumpy country roads, I felt something unusual. A rush of sticky moisture saturated my lap. It took me a few seconds to realize what happened, but it was obvious very quickly, and I think Jane realized too. We were dead silent. I could tell that she realized what happened because she shifted her weight on her lap awkwardly to attempt to make her spill less obvious. A minute later I felt even more moisture, now on a different part of my lap, so it was even more obvious. I kept my composure on the outside, but in my head, I couldn't believe what was happening. My sister was spilling more, and it was all over my lap. She shifted her weight again, and that again made it even worse. I was trying to imagine it was just her body sweating, but I had goosebumps from the cold air conditioning in the car. There was no question Jane was leaking all over my lap. She moved one more time, and I tried as well, but we were so snug back there it accomplished nothing. It made it much worse. I knew she was accidentally leaking, but now I was doing everything I could to stop myself from getting excited. I shifted to sit more upright, but my hands were trapped on her lap and to her side, so the position. The more I thought about the scenario, the more difficult it became. She shifted one more time, and sure enough, I could feel the blood rushing down there. I tried to slump back in the seat, but there was no stopping it. As I began to push against her, I looked to see my dad driving right in front of us. Luckily he was listening to the radio and focused on the road. He never noticed the awkwardness in the back seat. It was hard to tell from the angle, but my mom looked sound asleep to the right of us. Jane and I remained dead silent. Then it happened. Jane uncomfortably shifted her weight on my lap once again, and I jointly tried to sit upright again. As soon as Jane felt it, she perked up and did her best to lift her weight off my lap until there was no way either of us could ignore it. I could tell she was doing her best to lift herself higher off me, but we were so crammed there was nowhere to go. She continued leaking on me, looking straight ahead. It felt like an eternity. I had my eye on the car clock and figured we were probably only about 5 minutes from our cabin, so thankfully the end was in sight. But the more I thought about the situation, the more my mind wandered. And I know Jane felt the same because her private part was only getting more and more moist. But then, to my utter surprise, she did something shocking. She moved one hand off her knee and placed it on top of mine, placed her other hand under my leg, and twisted her head sideways to catch me in the corner of her eye. She smirked, and then she pushed down on me firmly. My jaw dropped, and I could not believe what was happening. But at the same time, I'd never felt anything so amazing. She looked straight ahead again, lifted herself slightly off me, then pushed down firmly again. I could not believe it. In my freshman year at college, I had my share of love and knew how everything worked and felt. But I'd never felt anything as surreal as that moment. Jane pushed down again. And again. Slowly, discreetly, but very methodically. Even more crazy was that our parents were in the car right in front of us, completely clueless. After about 5 or 6 thrusts down, I knew I was going to finish at any moment. She knew that as well, and was getting excited by it. She lifted herself up a little higher and prepared for one big push down. But in doing so, she pulled herself a little too far up, and my guy slipped out of her. After about 20 seconds of awkward confusion, Jane clenched my hand tight and used her other hand to tuck me back up into her. I could not believe it. This was no longer just an accident. Jane wanted my companionship. And that was all it took. 2 quick pumps and I finished. Jane could feel it too, and she peeped out a little high-pitched "oh." To my horror, both my parents noticed. Thankfully, Jane played it off as if some thought popped into her mind. Less than a minute later, we pulled up to our cabin. I could tell she was still enjoying it. My dad nudged my mom awake and started to get out of the car. That's when Jane piped up, "Don't worry, Dad, we made this mess back here, we'll figure out how to bring it to the cabin." Jane and I just sat there, pretending to organize some things in the car. Thankfully, my parents were perfectly content to leave the car and start making dinner in the cabin. When they were inside, I took off the seatbelt, but Jane still just sat there. We sat there for a few minutes until she finally started to lift off of me. I thought she was about to get out of the car, until she pushed back down onto my guy even more aggressively than ever before. We finally got out of the car, and I had to use an entire beach towel to clean up the mess made on the car seat. After we finally unpacked the car, fixed the bikes up, Jane looked at me and said with a clever smirk, "We should bike to the beach again tomorrow." And I could not have agreed more.